There are two kinds of people right now: those who sense that something fundamental is shifting, and those who will figure it out later. If you're here, you're probably the first kind. This is Naradigm Shift, where disclosure, consciousness, and the new world meet. Welcome to the shift.
Welcome to the Naradigm Shift. I'm Gerry Gomez. This episode is part of a series called Everybody Wants to Rule the World, an investigative arc examining every faction positioning for authority over what comes next as this civilization moves through one of the most significant transitions in recorded history. Today we go into the deep layer of why, at this moment, from a cosmic perspective, I've laid out previously in a Plancast article that darkness drives the madness. Well, how about going a layer deeper? There is a clock built into the structure of the solar system. Every major tradition on Earth has known about it, and so have the people who have been running this planet from the shadows. Today we examine what that clock actually measures, what the physical evidence of its approach looks like right now, and why the thing it produces in human biology is the one thing their bunkers cannot protect them from. This is the cosmic clock. The traditions, every map, same window. There was a line I wrote in the Event Arc series, and if you follow that work, this will land with familiar weight. I said the precession of equinoxes isn't a secret to people who built the pyramids, encoded the zodiac into cathedral floors, and named their spacecraft after Hermetic gods. They got that memo first. They've been reading it for centuries. Today, I want to examine what that memo actually says and what certain people have been doing with it. Let's start with the traditions that preserved this knowledge, not because they're interchangeable, but because their convergence is the most important structural fact in this entire conversation. Every map uses different language. Every map points to the same window. The Vedic tradition gives us the Yuga cycle, approximately 24 to 26,000 years, mirroring the astronomical precession of the equinoxes almost exactly. We are currently in the Kali Yuga, the Iron Age, but within it, a critical threshold was crossed in 2020, the opening of the Satya sub-cycle, the Golden Age segment within the Darkest Age. This is the precise mechanism behind the paradox of our moment, why we are experiencing maximum darkness and maximum illumination simultaneously. They are not sequential, they are concurrent. And the junction period between the ages, what the Vedic tradition calls the Sandhi, is the most dangerous and most fertile phase of the entire cycle. The seeds planted in the Sandhi determine the character of the age that follows. We are in the Sandhi right now. The Mayan long count calendar, wildly misread in 2012 as a doomsday prediction. Was it misread or was it presented that way? Was marking the end of one great cycle and the opening of another. Something did happen in 2012. The astronomers who built the calendar with a precision that modern science has confirmed were not primitive. They were reading the same cosmic clock every tradition in this episode is reading, in their own language, with their own mathematics, arriving at the same answer. The Hermetic and Rosicrucian traditions call this the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Pisces brought monotheistic religion, hierarchical power structures, hidden knowledge. Aquarius brings technology, transparency, networks, and the return of esoteric knowledge to common access. The occult becomes public. The hidden becomes revealed. Apocalypse, in its original Greek, means exactly that. The unveiling, the revealing, revelation, not destruction. And the Hopi call it the day of purification, the completion of the fourth world, the bringing on of the fifth, preceded by a period of extraordinary conflict and revelation in which humanity must choose between the material path and the spiritual one. The Hopi elders who maintained this teaching through generations of colonial suppression describe the signs of its approach with a specificity that reads like, in 2026, current news reporting. The raw material, channeled between 1981 and 1984, published as The Law of One, calls it the harvest, a third density graduation event tied to galactic mechanics, occurring on approximately 25,000 year cycles, in which souls sufficiently polarized towards service to others graduate to fourth density experience. Cobra's compression breakthrough model describes the same event from an operational perspective. Liberation forces pressing down from above, resistance forces pressing up from below. The dark control structure caught between them until it can no longer hold. The event as the physical, etheric, and galactic expression of the clock's alarms. So we have different names, different languages, different cosmological frameworks, but the same approximate window and the same alarm. Now here's a question this series is built to ask, and it's a question the cosmological conversation almost never gets to. In every sufficiently sophisticated civilization, eventually detects this clock, if the physics of it is real enough that traditions separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles all arrived at the same conclusion, then who else has detected it? Who has known about it not for decades, but for centuries? And what exactly have they been doing with that knowledge? The bridge, who already knew? The global elite are not ignorant of the shift. They are not people who haven't gotten the memo about consciousness evolution, cosmic cycles, and the precession of the equinoxes. They got that memo first, and they've been reading it for centuries. The mystery schools, Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, Hermeticism, the Babylonian traditions that predate all of them, encoded the cosmic clock into their initiation structures. The 26,000 year great year, the ages of the zodiac, the transition from Pisces to Aquarius, the Yuga cycles. This is not new information to the people who have been managing human civilization from the shadows. It is the foundation of their power. They know the shift is physics. They know it is happening. They know the window. And they have been deciding for generations what they intend to do when the alarm goes off. So this changes everything about how you read their behavior. Act 3. What they know, what they fear, what they're doing. The Carrington benchmark. So on October 1st and 2nd of 1959, the most powerful geomagnetic storm ever recorded struck the Earth. It's called the Carrington Event after the British guy, astronomer Richard Carrington, who observed the solar flare that triggered it. It hit our planet's magnetosphere with, or do they call it the magnetosphere? Magnetosphere. Oy. Tomato. With a force that remains unmatched in the instrumental record. Telegraph systems across North America and Europe failed catastrophically. Pylons sparked. Operators were electrocuted at their stations. Telegraph lines that had been disconnected from their power supplies continued to function on the current induced by the storm alone. Auroras were visible as far as south as Cuba and Hawaii. In 1859, the electrical infrastructure of civilization was telegraph wires. The damage was dramatic, but contained. So now scale that event forward to a civilization whose entire operational architecture, power grids, communications, financial systems, transportation, water treatment, food distribution, medical equipment, military command and control, they run on electromagnetic infrastructure. The result is not a dramatic disruption. It's a total halt of civilization. NASA and the National Academy of Sciences have put the economic damage of a modern Carrington-level event at between $1 and $2 trillion in the first year. Full recovery estimated at 4 to 10 years if recovery is possible at all. The elite planning apparatus uses the Carrington Event as its benchmark. They have the measurements, they have the scaling models. They've run the numbers on what a modern equivalent does to a civilization they have spent centuries constructing. In July 2012, a Carrington-class coronal mass ejection, a CME, narrowly missed the Earth, passing through the orbital path our planet had occupied just 9 days earlier. NASA physicist Daniel Baker described the potential impact as, and I'm quoting directly, catastrophic. That near miss received almost no mainstream media coverage. The absence of coverage is itself data. The Carrington Event is not an astronomical curiosity. It is the documented proof of concept for what the compression zone's physical expression looks like at solar scale. A solar system passing through a denser, energetic region produces increased solar activity. Increased solar activity produces coronal mass ejections. The cosmic clock and the Carrington risk are the same phenomenon at different scales. They know this. The bunkers they built are not built against a random hazard. They're built against a predicted consequence of a process they have been tracking in their mystery school traditions for centuries. The Stifling Project. Now we get to the piece that changes the moral picture of all of this, because the Carrington framework alone tells us why they're hiding underground or want to. It doesn't tell us why they spent centuries trying to ensure the rest of us can't understand what's happening. The mystery school tradition encoded 2 separate pieces of knowledge about the cosmic clock, and they distributed it to different levels of initiation. The first piece, a major energetic event is coming. It will be physically destructive to existing infrastructure, and survival requires preparation. So this was made available to a wider circle of initiates. This is the knowledge that drives the bunker building, the resource extraction, the geological and astronomical monitoring programs. This is why Elon Musk is hellbent on suggesting we need to be off planet. This is why Buzz Aldrin said, "Get your ass to Mars." The second piece, and this one I've arrived at through a lot of deep level resources and work, and it's been a while to get to this one. The same event activates dormant human DNA. It produces a transformation in human consciousness and capability that fundamentally alters the balance of power between administrators and the people they administer. So that second piece is held at the innermost levels, and for a real specific reason. You cannot maintain a model of humanity as managed resource if humanity knows it is about to become something that does not require management. Once you understand that, the history of esoteric suppression reads completely differently. The removal of the Book of Enoch from the canonical Bible, the persecution of the Gnostics, the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the pathologizing of consciousness research, the ridicule of frequency medicine, the suppression of Tesla's free energy work. Each of these is a separate historical event with its own specific circumstances, but together they form a single coherent project spanning centuries. Ensure that the population meets the moment of activation in maximum confusion rather than maximum readiness. Every framework that could have helped ordinary people understand what was coming to them and prepare to receive it consciously rather than be overwhelmed by it was systematically discredited, destroyed, or co-opted. not because it was false, because it was true. And because the implications of that truth, if widely understood, would dissolve the premise of the entire administrative project. So the underground calculation. So the plan at its best, as the available intelligence allows us to reconstruct it, is this. The solar event strikes, surface infrastructure collapses, geological effects, earthquakes, tidal disruption, crustal instability, render the surface uninhabitable for a period measured in decades, possibly longer. Those who have gone underground with sufficient resources, food, water, energy, genetic material, the accumulated knowledge of the civilization they intend to rebuild, survive. Those who remain on the surface face the full force of the transformation. After the event, the underground survivors emerge into a world that has been physically reset. No legacy institutions, no accumulated power structures, no legal frameworks through which ordinary people might hold them accountable. And the survivors who return carry exactly what's needed to re-administer: resources, knowledge, organization, and the biological continuity of bloodlines that regard themselves as the natural administrators of whatever comes next. 100 years later, a new civilization looks remarkably like the old one because the same people built it. But that plan has a fatal flaw. The flowers and the sun. So, this is a story I like to tell. Consider a field of flowers. Every morning, the sun rises, the flowers open. They do not decide to open. They do not require instruction or permission from the gardener. The photonic energy of sunlight, which is an energy source, a vibration of frequency, triggers a biological response that's written into their cellular structure. The response has been waiting in potential through every hour of darkness for exactly this stimulus. The flower does not bloom despite the sun. It blooms because of it. The sun is the activation signal for the flower's entire biology was designed. We are biological beings. Consider that for a second. We're organic as well. We are, at the cellular level, photonic receivers. When a mass influx of high-energy photonic radiation strikes the Earth, not the ordinary daily solar input, but a Carrington class or beyond event carrying the specific energy signature of the compression zone's peak, the biological effect on human physiology is not simply radiation damage. It is a trigger event for latent genetic sequences that have been dormant in human DNA for a very long time. The 97% of human DNA that mainstream genetics has dismissed as junk, non-coding sequences with no apparent function, is the most interesting genetic real estate on the planet precisely because its function is not apparent under ordinary conditions. These sequences are not vestigial remnants. They are instructions waiting for the right signal. And the right signal is not something that can be manufactured in a laboratory or delivered through a pharmaceutical. It is a specific quality and quantity of photonic energy that only a solar event of sufficient magnitude can provide. So here's the flaw in the underground calculation. The DNA activation does not respect the underground boundary. The photonic trigger for latent genetic sequences is not limited to line of sight solar radiation that can be blocked by rock and soil. The energetic quality of the compression zone's peak event, the specific vibrational signature that initiates biological transformation, permeates the planet. It comes through the ground. It comes through the water table. It comes through the electromagnetic field of the Earth itself, which is already responding to and conducting the energetic changes the compression zone produces. There's nowhere to hide from a frequency shift that is happening at the level of planetary physics, which means the people in the bunkers will also be activated. They will emerge, if they emerge, into a world whose surface population met the full force of the event without the buffer of material preparation, and has had, however long the underground period lasted, to integrate what they have become. The gardeners went underground to avoid the blooming season. When they come back up, they will find that every flower in the field opened without them. So I want to add here that this concept seems pretty stark and pretty out there. In the raw material, they mentioned that cosmological or cosmic societies are tethered and connected to our graduation. As we move, they're going to move as well. So them having higher knowledge of the event that's supposed to come are supposed to be here for our assistance. And that's a theme that's woven into a lot of the work that I've been producing recently, and why the whole event series took a look at different cosmic cultures and intel insiders reflecting and giving their perspective on what the shift is, what the event is specifically. This version of it is pretty controversial, but that solar flare conversation, a geomagnetic event, that's in mainstream, and elites talk about it pretty frequently, even at big old Davos type of conferences. So I want to close now with the counter operation. This is something I think gets lost in all the cosmic architecture, in the galactic clocks and the solar events, and the political analysis of who knew what and when. The Stifling Project has been aimed at one target above all others: your ability to understand, prepare for, and consciously receive it what is coming to you regardless of whether you understand it. A humanity that meets the activation in maximum confusion, depleted, informationally suppressed, frequency lowered through every available means, receives that activation differently than a humanity that has been tending its own field. The sun does not discriminate, but the condition of the biology at the moment of activation determines what the activation produces. This is why the counter operation is not primarily military or political. It is frequency-based. It is the deliberate, systematic restoration of the knowledge and the biological conditions that the Stifling Project has been targeting. Article by article, conversation by conversation, because the condition of the field at the moment of activation is the one variable that each of us can actually influence. The Stifling Project has been trying to deplete the biology, poison the field, keep the population in the specific frequency band that their administrative model was designed to manage. And we have been trying to tend it. The clock is still running, the alarm is approaching, and the flowers are already turning toward the sun. This is Gerry with the Naradigm Shift. Thank you for joining me today in our episode. Please consider sharing this article or talk about the details with your friends, family, and community, and get yourself prepared. Read more of this type of information at naradigmshift.substack.com. Be mindful that the Naradigm Shift publishes generally every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and that the upcoming next couple of weeks are going to be the series Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
There are two kinds of people right now: those who sense that something fundamental is shifting, and those who will figure it out later. If you're here, you're probably the first kind. This is Naradigm Shift, where disclosure, consciousness, and the new world meet. Welcome to the shift.